It's only the purple area that we're concerned with. Okay? What I'm now going to do is introduce you to the topography and climate of Iran. Now, first of all, ancient Iran does not mirror the borders of the modern nation state of Iran. Back then, ancient Iran would also include parts of what we call Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan, and Afghanistan. This shaded dark green area was actually under the influence of Iran. As a matter of fact, there are going to be countries outside of Iran that will have majority Iranian population. And you'll see this with regard to Tajikistan. The word Tajik is a Turkish word meaning non-Turk, and that's how the Turks refer to the Iranians. It's meant to be a derogatory term, even though it's not used as such right now. Now, first of all, the borders of Iran. And we're going to go with the borders of the modern nation state of Iran, even though I told you that the ancient borders are different. First of all, to the north, over here are Azerbaijan and Armenia. Okay? So basically going to the north of Iran are Azerbaijan and Armenia, flanking the Caspian Sea. To the west will be Turkey and Iraq. But in modern day Iran, it's Iraq. Okay? In ancient Iran, they went up to the borders of what would be modern day Turkey. The area with Iraq, once again, defines the western borders of Iraq. Now, to the north itself, over here in this area, which is orange and some purple, this is the modern day country of Turkmenistan. Okay? Very heavily influenced by the Iranians. Sure. I'll let you know when we get to it, but not too many. Okay, I'll talk to you about that later. And with regard to step, a lot of step. Yes, Andy. Yes, to the north over here and the east. Okay, this is the north and west of Iran. This is the north and east of Iran. Over in this area, Andy, will be Turkmenistan. Okay, think of it on the what would be the eastern bank of the Caspian Sea. Okay, if that helps. And also to the east itself, but not to the north, to the east itself. Iran will border on Afghanistan and Pakistan. And even today, Iranian influence is very strong, especially in Afghanistan. Now, those are the borders for Iran. Now, first of all, whoever settled Iran, and we'll talk about the steppe nomads that did, they didn't choose too good a country. You'd have to be either very desperate or very deranged to choose to settle in Iran. First of all, the central area of Iran, over here, the central area will be known as the Iranian Plateau. Okay? And it's going to be around this area over here, and it's very, very high and very, very dry. In the Iranian Plateau, you're going to have a lot of what you would call salt deserts, or I should say mid-latitude salt deserts. And there are two of them that you need to know. the Dakshi Kavir and the Dakshi Loop. The Dakshi Kavir is located right about here in the central plateau, and it's a formidable place. First of all, its name means Great Salt Desert, and it's 500 miles long by 200 miles wide. So it's 500 miles long by 200 miles wide. It is almost rainless. There's hardly any rain here. And because of that, it's practically uninhabited. It's practically uninhabited. Okay? There's sparse settlement in the Dakshi Kavir. There's sparse settlement, but along the hill, very, very small pockets of human settlement. Remember that this land is very, very daunting, and very few people can live there. Where there's very little water, people tend not to want to live there, although people will sometimes. The area to this day is not fully explored. It's very perilous to traverse that area. First of all, there's a great deal of chemical salts there that do make their way into whatever groundwater there is. And there's not a lot of it, but they make it brackish and in a lot of ways toxic. Okay? Plus, the land itself in many areas has quicksand. So to actually walk through there, you get the possibility of being swallowed up by the earth, literally. So it's not an area you want to live in. If you ever want to see a satellite photo of it, go into Google and check it out. It's like looking at, a muddy sink or something. It's really strange looking. Yes?
That would be for the first area?
That's correct. The Dakshi Kavir is the first of the major deserts of the central plateau. Now, was there another hand up? I'm sorry, go right ahead. Okay. Hit and miss. Because usually with the Iranian sun, which is pretty strong, and you're at a high elevation, any water that does manage to form from that dew in the morning will tend to evaporate. What you try to do is trap any dew that forms on the rocks early in the morning, because the desert tends to be cold tonight, okay? And there's condensation. And then you have to put them in underground channels to protect them from the sun evaporating. These underground channels are referred to as canals. And there are ways in which you can irrigate in areas of low rainfall. Kind of like the dry field farming that the Chimu would do, if you're familiar with pre-Columbian cultures in Peru. Now, the Kanat word is basically Arabic, and it refers to an underground water channel that's man-made. Now, the Dakshi Loop is smaller, and it's basically several hundred miles southeast of the Dakshi Kavir. And the Dakshi Loop is 300 miles long by 200 miles wide, and it's mostly a sand and stone desert, basically featureless. If you're going to end up there, you better know how to read the night sky so you get out of it, because it's not the heat of the desert that kills you, it's the cold. You see, when the temperature drops in the evening, it drops down to freezing, and that's when you keep moving, okay? Because you don't want to go to sleep when it's cold. You may not wake up. You want to keep your body blood circulating by moving around when it's cold, so you don't freeze to death. Usually, anyone that goes to the Dakshi Loop does so by accident, because no one in their right minds wants to be there. It's a sand and stone desert, and it contains a large salt marsh, of which, of course, people are not going to be able to take away. Now, to the north of the Iranian plateau is the Caspian Sea. The Caspian Sea is a large lake. That's what it really is. Okay? Flagging the Caspian Sea are a range of mountains, not very long, maybe 300 miles long, 200 miles long, and these are going to be the Elburz, or sometimes you may see it spelled with an AL, or Alburz Mountains. Okay? The Elburz Mountains have Iran's highest mountain in it, and it's Mount Damavan. This is the highest mountain in Iran. It's 18,000 feet above sea level, so it's a very tall mountain. Maybe not by Himalayan standards, but still pretty tall. Okay? You don't have to take down its name in Farsi. It's called the Harabarazai, and that usually means like a legendary mountain. Okay? It has importance in Zoroastrianism. I'll speak to you about that later. On the western borders with Iraq, there's another mountain range. It's longer, but not as high as the Elburz, and it is the Zagros. Listen carefully. The Zagros Mountains are very important in Iran, I'll tell you why. What? Usually, that's a valley. Snow mountain, water, right? Okay? The early Iranian settlers and most Iranians that want to engage in agriculture or they want to pasture their flocks, they need water, which means that they're going to congregate mostly the foothills and the Zagros Mountains. That's where you're going to get water, and you need that because Iran is primarily arid. It is bone dry in certain areas. So basically, you have two mountain ranges there. I talked to you about the deserts that are there. I now want to talk to you about how Iran basically harnesses water transportation. You know, in the north, you have the Caspian Sea, and it's navigable, it's placid. In the south is the Persian Gulf. This slot over here. Now, Iran, who bordered the Persian Gulf with the following countries: Iraq, Qatar, UATAR, Bahrain, BAHRAIN, the United Arab Emirates, of which you're familiar with Dubai, I'm sure, one of the best strong cities in the world. And the Persian Gulf is going to lead into the Gulf of Oman. And empty into the Arabian Sea.
Sorry, Gulf of
Oman. O-M-A. Okay? Now, basically, why this is important is because this is going to be the window of trade for Iran if Iran wanted to trade with India, Africa, or any other group of nations within the Indian Ocean. The Indian Ocean, unlike the Atlantic and the Pacific, tends to be very placid. Forget what happened on December 26, 2004, when there was a tsunami that moved through the Indian Ocean at 500 miles per hour, almost the speed of a jet airline. Okay? That's an anomaly. For the most part, this tends to be placid and easy to navigate. Yes?
So the border
In the north, you have your Caspian Sea.
and the south,
Correct. Correct. Now, yes? Well, you have Bahrain, Qatar, and did you want me to spell them for you? Yeah. Yeah, and of course Iraq. Iraq is still borders Iran there, and of course what I'm saying is that all these countries I mentioned are countries that exist now. Okay, remember back then we didn't have the United Arab Emirates or Qatar a lot of the countries in the Middle East were, their borders were designed by Europeans. Okay, and I don't want to get into that right now. We'll put that much later in the course. But the reason why Persian Gulf is important is because it's basically Iran's outlet on the Arabian Sea. The area that Iran will always look to protect as it can are the Straits of Hormuz. Okay? And Hormuz itself is an island, and you may see it spelled different ways. I'm not going to take off points for spelling. If it's close enough, it's close enough. Hormuz is actually an island right over here, and it lacks fresh water. No one is going to want to settle on that island because they want to build a civilization. They settle on that island as basically a trade entrepot, meaning they're going to basically set up a port there and exchange for commodities, right? The reason why you set the port there is you don't want somebody to close off the Straits of Hormuz, because if they do that, they choke off your avenue of trade. And if you want to kill a nation, you kill its commerce, right? Okay? That's why Hormuz is always going to be very important for the Iranians. And we'll see that the Portuguese will actually take it in 1513 under Alfonso de Albuquerque, and the Iranians will take it back a century later with the British under Shahbaz the Great of Islam. Yes, sir? It lacked fresh water. Fresh water. It's mostly, it has water on the island, but the water is basically salty, it's black, so you're not going to drink it. Okay? Now, you're going to have to import it from somewhere else, kind of like Aquafina Poland Spring. Okay, Paul, they're going to actually have to import it. I'm not joking about that. They can't even, yeah, no, I know. And it sounds incredible. You know what? When I tell this stuff, it's things I thought, really? They're going to stay there without reliable fresh water source? But they do so because of the strategic ability. Okay? They're willing to actually undergo this hardship just to make sure that they keep the lanes of commerce open. And you don't have to take this down now, but the Portuguese strategy, when the Portuguese wanted to basically usurp the Muslim stranglehold on trade in the Indian Ocean, the Portuguese decided to take over 3 areas that they thought could strangle Muslim trade in the Indian Ocean. They were Hormuz, okay, Aden, over here, right, closing off access to the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean, and Malacca, which would be in modern day Indonesia, not the Greek word for jerk, okay, which you probably heard of like the time. Now, yes, sir. 1513. And basically it's going to be religious crusade. We'll talk about that for us and you'll find it interesting. Yes, Dave. They didn't have the required machinery for that. They actually just brought it in from Iran itself. And because it's close by, they figured why even bother to go through a whole desalinization process. So they would just bring it in from the coast. And you needed to keep contact with the coast because once again, in the event that the island was being attacked, you want reinforcements. That doesn't mean you always be able to send people off. As we had established before, the Portuguese would actually take over our home. We'll talk about that later. How far? Oh, very, very close. You're talking only, only several miles away. Maybe they could have, but they just didn't seem to have had the engineering capacity at that time to do that. So it would have been something of a feat. But they dealt with the best thing. So we'll talk about Hormuz later in the course, because it's worthwhile talking about when we get to the Safavids. Now, the climate of Iran. Okay, let's talk about the climate. The climate of Iran in the west is a Mediterranean climate usually. Mediterranean means you're going to have, for the most part, warm summers, warm dry summers, and basically mild winters. The winters will rarely have snow, mostly rain. Okay, mostly precipitation. Of course, it varies according to elevation, right? Because you know that for every 1,000 feet that you go up in elevation, you drop on average 3 degrees Fahrenheit. That's why it tends to be cooler in mountains. Okay? Now, with regard to the center of Iran, I explained to you that once again it's a middle latitude desert. Okay, and the desert, as you know, is an area where evaporation rates exceed precipitation. In other words, water dries up faster than it's replenished. Some of these deserts in the world could be incredibly formidable. Did you know that in the Atacama Desert in South America, it's been known to have 1 inch of rainfall in 10 years? And the same with the topography. That's bone dry. Okay? Now, with regard to the eastern part of Iran, the eastern part of Iran and the east center of Iran are what you call mid-latitude steppe. And I'll tell you why this is important. Mid-latitude steppe is going to have quite a bit of grass. It's available in groups or available in patches. Why do you think this would be important? Raise your hand. Yes, sir.
Because on those long term of that.
Anyone answer? Very good. You can answer that. Very good. You'll got that. Great. And what I want you to take a look at what we call Eurasia here. Now listen, Europe and Asia are really one continent. Yes, Erica?
I'm sorry, is it strictly for grazing or could it be agricultural as well?
Strictly for grazing, because here's the deal. If you're going to be a pastoral nomad and your flocks, your cattle, your horses need to eat, you're not going to be able to grow crops on the area they munch out on. Okay? That's why there's usually a traditional rivalry between sedentary agriculturalists and pastoral nomads. The pastoral nomads want land for their critters to munch out on, but agriculturalists want that land to grow crops.
So do they
Yes, we'll talk about that, Sean. That's right, they will have it. It's not totally foreign, but they're going to be available in different areas. The way I want you to think of the Eurasian steppe, first of all, okay, Europe and Asia are not really two continents, they're really one continent. Does anyone really know what separates the two? Yes? That's it. The Urals, which are a group of mountains that are about 6,000 feet high, which is really ridiculous compared to the Himalayas. And the Urals basically have many different passes. I want you to think of the Eurasian steppe as a causeway, as a highway for the traffic of nomads going back and forth through Asia and Europe, looking for pasture land for their cattle, their sheep, their goats, their foraging animals. Okay? Remember that pastoral nomads are relegated to what they call food collection. They must go in search of food. They're usually hunters, and they bring animals with them in the event that they're not successful in the hunt, and you'll maybe slaughter a sheep or goats or take their milk or whatever until a food source presents itself to you, and then you take advantage of it. Okay? So at the beginning, you're going to see wide groups of nomads cascading from Asia to Europe and back and forth. Think of this as a type of highway for people to migrate. Yes, speak to me. Yes, sir. Well, pastoral nomads, and I don't think I mentioned different type of nomad. I think I mentioned sedentary agriculturalists, which are people that stay in one area and grow a predictable food supply. Now, the difference of pastoral nomads, sedentary agricultural. Sedentary meaning they stay in one spot out. Okay? Now, the advantages, of course, of growing crops means you have a predictable food supply, right? Barring a drought or barring anything else. Emily, I have a question.
I'm sorry.
No need to be sorry, we're still friends. Go ahead.
Briefly going back to the central area, what is the closest to get towards the highest?
Okay. If you're talking about the central plateau area, which has a desert climate, you can get up to about 120 degrees Fahrenheit and you drop to about 70 degrees in the same day. Okay, that's some temperatures. Okay. Anyone here ever travel the desert, go to Mojave, the small area? Yeah, you know that you go to the desert, especially in the daytime, but when that sun sets, you get really cold. Okay? And basically, that's what you're going to see. In mid-latitude steppe areas, you get hot summers. And the summers will be about 90 degrees Fahrenheit on the average. The winters will be cool. Winters in the mid-latitude steppe, I'll be with you second Benji, will be about 30 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Not super freezing, but on the cool side. Now, Benji, you have a question. Okay, it's going to be a dry summer. You can never go wrong thinking dry, Benji, when it comes to Iran. Now, with regard to nomadic herding, the animals of choice, of course, are cattle and sheep, and of course, horses. But the horses, of course, are not going to be used for food. They're going to be used for transportation, for mounting. Okay? And this is going to also give steppe nomads an advantage in war over infantry. Okay, remember. Okay. And there will be camels later, and there'll be the Bactrian type. The Bactrian camels are simple, unlike the dromedary, and they have more pleasant dispositions. The dromedary could be named ornery beasts. If they don't like you, you could be in for trouble. I remember when I was a kid, I went to the Bronx Zoo and I rode a camel. There was a guy there who was in charge of the camel, and he apparently mistreated the camel. The camel didn't like him at all. So as soon as I dismounted and walked by, the guy basically bent over to get a bucket of feed, and the camel kicked him in a very sensitive area. And I'm like thinking to myself, wow, I don't know if I want to ride a camel in the future. But the camels will spit you, the dromedaries tend to be very temperamental. But they're important animals because they're very strong and they usually do not require a lot of water. Okay, they're very slow digesters. And basically, in the event that you're in the desert and you run out of water, you basically stick your hand down their throat, you're forcing them to regurgitate the water nutrient. Okay? And it keeps you alive until you can figure out what the hell to do next. Okay? I know it doesn't exactly sound like, Dasani water or stuff. It comes from, tap water. And there'll be poultry raising among the nomads, so you're going to have your chickens and associated fowl. But the question was asked, how about agriculture itself? Are there certain things that grow in Iran, fruits and vegetables? Yes. Okay? And I'll tell you that in particular areas in the upland near the Zagros mountains, where you get well-watered valleys, you prefer the following commodities. First of all, your grain staples, right? Wheat and barley grow there. And barley is very good as a cereal grain because barley tends to be very saline and rich. In other words, it basically doesn't need soil that's devoid of salt. It grows well in salty soil, okay? Which is good. What else grows there? Citrus fruits. Your standard oranges, lemons, grapefruits, limes. This is flanking the Zagros Mountain. Okay? This is flanking the Zagros Mountain. And you're going to get your deciduous fruits, your fruits that grow on trees. Apples, peaches, pears. Oh yes. But it means in effect that there's basically trees that will sprout leaves and shed them seasonally. That's correct, yes.
No grapes, so why? Sounds like grapes.
The grapes will be imported from the Mediterranean. And we're going to see that once we see Persia's contact with Greece and various other areas. What's that? And peaches as well. And Tracy? Apples, pears, and peaches. Peaches originated from China, but they spread outward. One argument that people have who are historians of fruit, I guess fruit historian, I'm good at that. Basically a fruit historian or anyone who's a vegetative historian are basically going to argue that apricots have originated in Hawaii. Okay? I personally like it, especially when it's dry, but each their own. Tobacco will later be introduced to Iran, and it'll grow fairly well there. As a matter of fact, we're going to find out that basically an attempt by England to monopolize the tobacco industry is actually going to lead to Iran's first popular revolution under the Qajar dynasty. We'll talk about that much later in the course. Not in the chapels itself, but flanking, okay? Because remember too that people try to stay away from the popular areas that are too hot, too cold, too hot, or too dry. Doesn't mean they won't, but they tend not to stay on. Usually when the people are playing, they're going to tell them to sit down, but that's what they get. And wonder about it. Okay, those are the areas that will be well watered, dry. Okay, and of course the great thing about agriculture is even in the event that you're still a hunter-gatherer, if you grow a food supply on the side, you know that you're not totally dependent upon having to kill animals to eat, right? You have, at the very least, an alternate source of food. And if you're successful enough in cultivating a very large area, you enhance what's called the carrying capacity of the land. The capacity of the land to feed its population. Okay? Now, as far as minerals go, and mineral extraction goes, the major minerals that Iran will have, which it will mine, are going to be copper, lead, zinc, and iron. So it's copper, lead, zinc, and iron. These are your major minerals that will be mined in Iran. Okay? This, where? Copper in the south, and the other three metals for the Iranian flip-up. And I might as well just say one thing about the south, and we'll pretty much show as our introduction to Iranian topography and climate. I'll be with you a second, Simeon. Basically, when it comes to cities, like the four great capitals of ancient Persia, the Sargadate, Persepolis, Ecbatana, Susa, I'll talk to you about how they grow when I get to that period in time. So we'll talk about the founding of cities in the historical narrative as we go through it, okay? And as far as Tehran goes, Tehran is a recent capital. It only became the capital of Iran under the Qajar dynasty, which ruled from 1794 to 1925. It's a recent city. Okay? Now, Simeon, now question or comment?
In Africa, they mine salt in these salt flats.
Yes.
They cut it out and they put it on camels. So I would imagine when you're describing the salt areas of Iran, do they do similar things like that?
You know something? As far as I know, if any salt is mined from those areas, it's mined from the edges. There is a very strange mixture of the salt with other chemicals that make some of the salt fairly toxic. So you never had that big salt trade like you would have with the Maghreb, is what you're referring to, North Africa, with the Sub-Saharan African side. No, never anything quite like that. You will have something, but it won't be a major industry like it would have been for the sub-Saharan African trade with the Maghreb, with the North African river. Okay? Now, one thing I will tell you is that outside of Oman and outside of this area on Darabad, the southern coast of Iran has very poor harbors. And I'll be giving you they tend to be very shallow, rocky, and because of the fact that they're very poor harbors, they're not going to create a lot of trade and forward. So you think with this wide coast that Iran has on itself, then they have, great deal of ports. And ports mean commerce, they mean wealth. Yet it does not. Most of Iran's trade will be overland, and Iran throughout its history will never really develop a strong maritime capacity. This will differentiate it from other Muslim empires like the Mughals and the Ottomans in particular. Iran is very much a terrestrial state. It basically does most of its trade overland. You will have examples every now and then of mercantile trade and maritime trade. That will happen, but it's going to be a smaller fraction of Iran's trade. Most of Iran's trade will come through what are referred to as the Silk Roads and the Silk Road travel. Okay? That being said, now I talked to you about the topography and climate of Iran. And I want to close with the fact that it's northwest Iran which has the best access to water. And not only is it because of the Zagros, but in northwestern Iran, there's a branch of the Tigris River that runs through there. And I believe Paul had asked about rivers. It's this branch of the Tigris River that will bring fresh water to northwest Iran. And at that point, I now want to talk about the peopling of Iran itself. First of all, the Iranians are a branch of what are called Indo-European nomads, Indo-European people. The crash, the birthplace for these Indo-Europeans will be on the Eurasian steppe. Crash? Sure, a crash, a birthplace, a crib, if you will. Here you go, Charlotte. We add a new word to your vocabulary. By the time I'm done with you, you'll be a sexual failure. You know what that is? Someone who uses a large word. Okay, now, basically the crash will be on the Eurasian steppe, and it disseminates into Central Asia, Europe, northern India, remember the Aryan invasions of India, right? And Iran. So the Iranians are a branch of the Indo-European peoples whose crash will be on the Eurasian steppe and who disseminate into Central Asia, Europe, northern India, and Iran. And you have to agree with me, that's a hell of a weight. That's a large amount of land.
But they all, this is migration.
Very much so.
You can also trace some of that, the language, especially in this business, and also not characteristic of the
If you have an interest in that, you're 100% correct in what you said. If you have an interest in that, read the book In Search of the Indo-Europeans by J.P. Mallory. No. Okay? So if you want to read it, it's very technical. It's not for intellectual flyweights, of which you are not. Okay? You're a serious intellectual. And I don't want to argue with you, Claude. Okay? And In Search of the Indo-Europeans by J.P. Mallory, and Victor Mayer was one of the experts on Indo-Europeans too, from an archaeological and linguistic point of view. Yes. Okay. The Iranians are branch of the Indo-European peoples whose fresh will be on the Eurasian steppe and who disseminated to Central Asia, Europe, Northern India, and Iran in a series of migrations and invasions. From 1500 BC onward. It's in 1500 BC that you're seeing an explosion of Indo-European people going in all sorts of directions, like hitting basically billiard balls with the white ball. They're going in all directions from the Eurasian steppe. That's correct, from 1500 BC onward. Now, what's that? Yeah. Basically from 1500 BC is when practically go over more emotion. Okay? Now, the Persian language is going to share cognates, recognizable words, or word roots, if you will. The Persian language shares cognates with Latin and Sanskrit. Okay? So you're actually going to see Farsi, the Persian language, have similarities with Latin and Sanskrit. Which did you want to hear? Sanskrit. It's an ancient language of India. For instance, I'll give you an example. In Latin, mater is mother. In Sanskrit, mat is mother. It sounds very similar because they have a common origin. They differentiate according to each particular area of settlement, but there's a common origin. Think of this as an Indo-European mother tongue, and we refer to an Indo-European language group. Okay? Now, the original inhabitants of Iran, and they did have original inhabitants, were Paleolithic non-Iranian speakers. So the original inhabitants of Iran were Paleolithic meaning Old Stone Age, non-Iranian speakers. And they go back, yes sir? They do not speak the Indo-European tongue. They speak a different type of tongue which we don't know much about.
They come from before this.
That's correct. Before the invasion of the Indo-European nomads. So there were inhabitants of Iran that existed before the Iranians came in. That's correct.
Moving down from the steppe.
Exactly.
Into the Iranian
That's right.
area.
And they displaced the original inhabitants. Correct. Displaced them. Very shadowy, very miasmic. First of all, we don't have any records of their writing. Okay, if they wrote at all. And we're hampered when that happens. If we don't have access to written records, it's a shot in the dark. It's rolling the dice. We don't know what the hell happened. We don't know what they were like. We have an idea because we can basically do archaeological excavations. But some of those are inconclusive as far as how they lived. Yes, sir. Very, very little, if anything. I would think that all they would have been foragers, looking for nuts, roots, berries, anything. Right, exactly. They would be basically foragers. And yes,
So basically, this was happening at the same time where there were the Spanish were conquering, different parts, more happening over.
this was way before Spain was Spain. Yeah. Because the original Paleolithic non-Iranian speakers went back in Iran as far as 100,000 BC. Okay? And they basically dwell, this much we know, they dwell in these rural pockets. We think there's a possibility that they may have had some kind of rudimentary agriculture. Now, Kenny, you have your hand up. Oh, I'm sorry, you need this. Go ahead. Northwest. Not only, just most. Yeah, okay. Now, basically, the people that were the original inhabitants of Iran tended to surround the Zagros Mountains. The reason why is easy. I mentioned before. That's where you have your most abundant fresh water. Okay? So they're going to go to where life can be sustainable, right? You don't want to live in a dry area. You don't want to live in an area where you have to work very hard at making the land work for your survival. Okay? So basically, you're going to see these little rural pockets surrounding the Zagros Mountains. Maybe some of it might have been agriculture. If it was low-level agriculture. Yes, speak to me. No, the Zagros are in the northwest. There are no major mountain ranges to the south in Iran. They're all in the north. The Alberts are going to be in the north over here. The Zagros are going to be in the west over here. Okay? Yes.
On the map with the fresh water.
Sure. Okay. When you say fresh for basically for the Indo-European, it's a wide fresh. Right? Every stand you could think of, every Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, all of this was a fresh for Indo-European people. Because they were pastoral nomads with constant movement. They did not stay in one place. They will stay in one place when they begin to break out and they look for areas to invade and settle. And that's how Iran was invaded. Yes. Tigris River is in the north over here, and it's going to be a tributary that's not even shown on the map. It's going to be right about here. Okay, right about this area. I'm sorry? It's going to run south of the Zagros. Yes. Yeah, it's going to be basically the Tigris and Euphrates. Oh, I'm sorry. We're going back to the fresh. Yes, exactly. It's going to be around the Caspian Owl Sea area. That's right. Okay? Now, with regard to basically the people that are going to actually move into this area. First of all, originally you're going to have some people move in from Mesopotamia into parts of Iran, and these are going to be the people, and they're not Iranian, they're known as by the term Elamites, from the city of Elam in Mesopotamia, modern Iran. And the Elamites are non-Iranian speakers. And they're going to basically move into what would be Western Iran. And they're going to move south from Western Iran, and follow me here, they're going to move south into this area over here, which is called Fars, or Fars. So you're going to see Elamites moving into that area. Now, when the Iranians appear, okay, the Iranians will have arrived as a minority. In other words, we know that they arrived in small numbers. And they're going to bequeath their language and culture. They will bequeath their language and culture to the original inhabitants. When I said they displaced them, I want to clarify that. I don't mean they're violent. There was violence involved, but it was low level. When the Iranians will displace the original inhabitants, they'll do so by intermarrying with them. And the Iranian culture will be. Okay? So that's the way in which the Iranian culture will become predominant. So let me explain that the Iranians come as pastoral nomads. And I'll tell you why that's important. The Iranians come as pastoral nomads, and their wealth is portable, which means it can be easily transferred from place to place. And what is their wealth in? Their wealth is in their flocks. Their wealth is in their flocks. Okay? Now, with regard to the actual settlement, what makes the Iranians very good at adapting to the environment is if a threatening situation comes, they can flee rapidly. If a threatening situation comes, they can flee rapidly. Why? Because they're used to movement as nomads. What are these Iranian nomads going to do once they're in Iran? This is what they'll do. They're going to make use of the semi-arid steppe region. They're going to make use of the semi-arid steppe region, which is agriculturally unsuitable. They're going to make use of the steppe region, which is agriculturally unsuitable, to graze their cattle and their fat-tailed sheep. And I'm going to tell you that this kind of nomadic life will be part of Iran for a while to come, as Iranians develop what's called a transhuman society. Transhuman means that they move from one area to another according to the season. Now let's explain to you how to move these goes. Cattle and fat-tailed sheep, correct. Unsustainable, unsuitable, meaning it's not good for growing crops. Okay, Marcella? Yes, Pamela? Okay, we'll talk about that. Okay, first of all, basically, you're going to graze your animals on the mountain slopes. As the snow vanishes, because once the snow vanishes, it's low water. Now, be with me in a second, Josh. Okay? And you're going to move down to the valleys in the autumn. So you're going to rotate between mountain valley and steppe region according to your need. Okay? So at the beginning, when the Iranians come into Iran, they're going to still be mobile. They're just not going to be as mobile as they were in the Eurasian steppe. They're going to move within Iran, not from Iran to another country. Josh, speak to me.
Right, you were saying before they made use of, what was that area?
Okay, it's going to be the semi-arid steppe region. Okay? Now, for the indigenous sedentary farmers, and you're going to have it, this is how they're going to make life sustainable if they're getting involved in agriculture. It's not going to be easy. They're going to make lavish use of canals, underground water channels, or basically they're going to trap morning dew and put it into cisterns, underground cisterns, so the sun doesn't evaporate the water. In a semi-arid land, water is life. No water, no life. You can only live a week without fluid intake. Okay? Remember that water is used for you, it's used for your animals, it's used for agriculture. You don't have water, you don't have anything. Okay? Now, here's the deal. Okay? Basically, the sedentary farmers will make lavish use of these canals, these underground water channels. However, harvest time will be a time of vulnerability. And I'll tell you why. This early Iranian settlement is going to be very tenuous indeed. There's a great deal of brigandage. Okay? Brigandage meaning thievery. And you're going to have bandits organized to attack communities at harvest time. And these invasions will be violent. They'll involve the slaughter of people and the taking of sustenance. Now, there's one caveat about these rates on sedentary population. The nomads might hit grains and crops. By violence. But if, and listen carefully, if they are evenly matched, meaning in the event that the population can put up a good fight, if they're evenly matched, trade will take place. That means that the nomads will give meat and wool in exchange for the grains and crops. So there'll be an exchange if the populations are more or less evenly matched. But in the event that there's a great deal more of the loggers than there are of the villagers, it's force that will prevail. Okay? So a lot depends upon how well off they're matched. So if the nomads feel they have the upper hand, which they often do, coercion will take place. Violence will take place. Now, over time, tribute will be paid to Iranian nomads. Over time, tribute will be paid to Iranian nomads. This is simple. This is not rocket science. Tribute means, in effect, here's money, leave me the hell alone. Coercion, okay? Basically what this is extortion by nomads. If you don't give me your crops, I'll crack your head if you don't give me a portion of your crops. It's as simple as that. I can't make it simple. Okay, once again, these nomads are all the offshoot of this Eurasian steppe. Okay? And the time period, once again, 1500 BC on. Now, or original inhabitants who basically were not taken into the Iranian movement. Okay? Yeah. No need to be sorry, let me be confused. The nomads and the bands. Okay? Let me know the secret, okay? Nomads are hunting. Hunting is the preparation for war. The bow and arrow that I use to shoot down a deer, a bear, anything, I can shoot a human being. They're not officially hunting, they're not looking for meat. What they're basically doing is they're coercing them into giving up their life. Now, are there any other questions so far? Yes, sir.
So when you're talking about Iranian, is that one of the Elamites makes any difference?
Don't think about the Elamites now, because the Elamites are in their own little corner of Iran, and they're not going to be affected right now by the Iranian invasion. They will be later, and we'll talk about that later. Okay?
So when you say Iranian,
I mean the steppe nomads that basically invaded Iran. Okay? And they speak an Iranian dialect. Okay? Their origin here, looking forward, origin here, they're invading in different areas, they're part of an Indo-European group, they go into Iran, and they have basically, is everything okay? You alright? Okay? Yeah. And basically, they're going into Iran, they have a certain type of dialect, and they're going to bring their culture and their dialect with them, and it gradually displace the original inhabitants. Okay? Yes, sir.
These are Iranian speaking nomads from that area that you pointed out. There were other Indians as well. Or
Yes. Northern India, Europe, various other areas as well. However, when people have a common origin and they begin to settle in different areas, they're going to adapt to different societies, and they're going to develop their own distinctive society based on the area they invade, their contact with indigenous peoples, and their adaptation to the individual environment. Listen, if I'm going to be if I'm going to be in the desert, I'm not going to build an igloo, right? If I'm in the desert, I'm not going to build a wooden house. There's no wood there. You adapt to what you go into. So culture will begin to form as they begin to become sedentary. They're in the process of doing this now, Josh, through the invasion. So what I'm basically explaining now is how these Indo-European nomads come into Iran, and they have a particular culture, a particular language, and they're going to influence the people that live there, and they will in turn be influenced by it. Okay? Yes?
So the tributes would become a common practice. Why wipe them away?
Very
They
good.
need the grain.
Very good. Okay? The tribute is a prelude to taxation, which all governments do by Yes. Okay. You're asking Shirley a good question. First of all, I'm going to tell you what the answer would be. First of all, I want you to imagine like a war, okay? If you're going to attack an area, you want to attack an area that's only defended or weak. Okay. Which means that you'd rather attack weak villages than another nomadic tribe which knows how to fight for exactly and can catch it. Most people take the path of least resistance. A bully never picks on someone who's like to fight. Right? They basically pick on people that they can exert their will upon. And it's a similar situation here. And what you're basically going to see is that the nomads over time are going to settle down and demand tribute, and a government will develop as its extortion becomes taxation. It becomes annual and predictable. Now, to elaborate on what Josh said, the Iranian influx is composed of a melange of tribes, many different tribes, and they confederate into alliances, which will constantly shift. Confederation means that in order to have greater power, you're going to join the other people. You've heard the term the unity of strength, right? Would it not make sense if you want to become a richer and stronger society to go find other warriors that fight with you? So what's going to happen is over time, you're going to see different Iranian tribal groups confederate, and the most important of them will be known as the Medes, the Persians, and the Saudi. Now, originally, the Medes will be the most powerful of the three. And they will reign from an area called Media, which I will explain to you what that is next week. Because I do not want to talk about the rise to power of Cyrus the Great and the enemies until next week. I now want to shift to religious history because I want to talk about the original religion of the Aryans, which are what these original steppe nomad invaders are called. Iran means land of the Aryans. Now somebody had their hand up. Yes, they can.
So like I got when they didn't really have like laws. You just have this tribe and this tribe is the fact.
Think of it as custom. Right. It's not an elaborate law system. They did not write it. Okay? Which hampers the ability to create a law code. Right? Law becomes law and it becomes fixed in the form of custom, a fixed practice. Okay? Later on, when you develop a more elaborate state apparatus, you're going to see basically the shift to standardized law. But wait until the feminists take power for that. Yes?
Could it be,
Tell you what, if it comes to you, raise your hand again, okay? Yes, Dave.
But also since like I guess there's no kind of study dramatic at this point. Do they know identify what a tribe rather than like consider a plot of land?
Both. What's going to happen is several tribes begin to confederate. They're going to create what will be known as territorial integrity, meaning they're going to define boundaries for where they live. And then you're going to get the Nazi setup of a state, okay? And a state by Iranian speakers, however, they're organized around one of these three groupings of Iranian speakers, okay? And now you remember.
Yeah, you said about the Aryans, I read the Aryans, but
Iran means the land of
you
the
land again.
Yeah.
But they were like, not you know, theory about like the Aryan race. So is that just like you just grab that term and use it something else, or that because it seems like completely different use?
First of all, besides being a lunatic, Hitler was wrong when it came to history. Okay? He had a very strange notion of history, and I honestly believe, I can't prove it, but I honestly believe that top-Nazi bred people like Goebbels, Hungarian, and Iceland, all the other names, I don't think they believe that they should bullshit themselves. I think that they believe that most people would, and those that were smart enough not to believe it would be too afraid to challenge. I don't even want to dignify that with the response, because the Nazis' idea of history is history based upon racial prejudice and lunacy. Okay, it's not based on any knowledge of this. Okay, everyone here at the age of 5 knew more about history than history. Okay, and to be quite honest, it's not even worth talking about, and that's not to discount that. I mean, the symbol of the Nazi is a swastika. It's actually Sanskrit from swastika. It means good luck. It's a stylized sun wheel. You see it on Hindu texts. Okay? And he adopted it for the Nordic race. Now, what was Hitler's Nordic race? 6 foot tall, blonde haired, blue eyed Superman. Have you ever seen a picture of Hitler? None. Okay. No. A Nordic box.
Right. Nearby people because show some kind of
Yeah. No. For pagans, stylized something. That's what basically means. Yeah. And confederation of ruling elites and tribes. But I think that all states, in order to be effective, have to be several things. Number one, look, we're citizens of the United States. The United States, like all countries, wants to pay taxes, buy dividends. Okay? That's basically it. Now, you choose not to pay taxes, but the United States government would say that's the fine. So what they're going to do is that they have coercion with everything from public treasury to IRS. And they're going to threaten to basically take away your liberty, take away your possessions, or do something to make life unpleasant and you should divide the states. All states, no matter how democratic they say they are, always rule with the male fist behind them. Now, basically, the formation of the states, in order to have a standing army, in order to have government, and to have government officials that enforce laws, come up with laws, and they need to have money. Okay? Which means that government needs resources. So now what we're seeing is, we're seeing what was originally extortion becoming taxation, and now we're seeing the beginning of the formation of a lobbying state apparatus. Okay? Now, at that point, I want to leave this and I'll get back to that next week when we'll talk about the rise of the eminent empire. Okay, when the world's first great bloc empire, multi-ethnic empire. What I want to talk to you about right now